Coming up on Network Africa, Italy holds state funeral for the Italian ambassador to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Moderna to test booster shot to target the South African COVID-19 variant. Plus, United Nations calls for renewed concerted efforts to ensure protection of human rights of all people. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Teniola Shoboale. We begin today in the Italian city of Rome, where the state funeral of the Italian ambassador to the Democratic Republic of Congo has been held. Luca Attanasio, his Italian police guard Vittorio Iacovacci, and a Congolese driver, Mustafa Milambo, were killed on Monday when the UN convoy they were traveling in was ambushed in the volatile east of DR Congo. Italy's new Prime Minister, Mario Draghi, was among the mourners at the funeral service. The Congolese government has blamed a Rwandan Hutu rebel group, the FDLR. The rebels have, however, denied the allegation. Now, the U.S. company that produces the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine says it's ready to test a booster shot to target a variant of the virus first discovered in South Africa. Early studies show that its original vaccine, which is approved in the U.S. and EU, is less protective against this strain, which has now been detected in at least 40 countries. The company says it's ready to do human trials with several different strategies to see what gives more protection. An additional booster to the original vaccine, combining the booster with the original, or giving two separate variant-specific vaccines. Moderna says the new trials will also monitor the immune responses of people already vaccinated and those receiving their first dose of the vaccine. Mozambique has received the first batch of 200,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses from the Chinese government. The vaccines by Sinopharm were received on Wednesday by Prime Minister Carlos Agostinho at the Maputo International Airport. The Prime Minister says the government is working on getting more COVID-19 vaccines. The vaccination drive will prioritize high-risk groups like the estimated 60,000 health workers. Meanwhile, the health authorities have reported the lowest number of COVID-19 deaths in the country between Tuesday and Wednesday since the beginning of this year. 2 male patients aged between 57 and 58 died, bringing the total number of fatalities to 608. The country has so far recorded 56,920 cases since the pandemic started. Meanwhile, Senegal has administered Sinopharm's COVID-19 vaccine throughout health centers in the country's capital, Dakar. This comes a day after the Minister of Health launched a campaign to reassure citizens it's safe. Senegal received 200,000 doses of the vaccine on February the 18th for frontline health staff, the elderly, and people with underlying conditions like diabetes or heart problems and chronic illnesses.
At a health center in Dakar, people gather to receive the Sinopharm dose despite rumors that it is unsafe or could lead to sterility. Usmani Dia, an imam, says he has spread the word throughout his community to persuade people to overcome their fear and get a jab.
We just want the coronavirus to leave Senegal and to never hear about it again. It was with a feeling of immense joy that we welcomed the vaccine. And we are fully confident about it, knowing it won't kill us. Even if you are scared of taking the vaccine, you should, as it will only bring peace and good health.
At another health center, the Gaspard Kamara Clinic in Sikap neighborhood, health workers carry out regular COVID-19 tests. Some doctors at the clinic, like Dr. Baye Samba, have been caring for patients who tested positive for coronavirus and are treated at home.
After the vaccination, I felt a sigh of relief because we have been dealing with patients with COVID. We live through the experiences of the COVID patients. We live that together. We see how this COVID manifests itself. And it was a smile to get vaccinated so that we at least can achieve immunity.
The 200,000 doses will vaccinate 100,000 people. However, Senegal has a population of about 16 million people. As a lower middle-income country, Senegal is eligible for around 1.3 million doses for free in the first wave of disbursement from the WHO's COVAX program. But shipments are not expected to start until late February, and most will arrive in March. Last week, Senegal said it had paid a little over 2 billion CFA francs for the Sinopharm doses to kickstart its vaccination campaign this month. It has so far recorded over 31,000 cases and 769 deaths from COVID-19.
Africa has now recorded over 100,000 COVID-19 deaths, and there is growing concern over delays in rolling out vaccination programs. A few African countries have started vaccinating their citizens, but many others will have to wait until later in the year for stocks to arrive. This comes amid a global competition to get hold of vaccines, but African countries have generally not been as successful as richer countries in securing supplies. Currently in North Africa, these are the countries vaccinating and the vaccines being used. Morocco is using the AstraZeneca and Sinopharm vaccines, Algeria Sputnik 5 vaccine, and Egypt the Sinopharm vaccine. In sub-Saharan Africa, the countries vaccinating are South Africa with the Johnson & Johnson jab, Seychelles is using Sinopharm and AstraZeneca, while Rwanda is vaccinating with Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Others are Mauritius with the AstraZeneca jab and Zimbabwe and Senegal with the Sinopharm vaccine. Equatorial Guinea has received a batch of Sinopharm vaccine but is yet to begin giving it to the general public. Meanwhile, Guinea has administered only 60 doses of the Russian Sputnik 5 vaccine on an experimental basis. In the meantime, Ghana has received 600,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine through the COVAX initiative and expects to start administering them in March. We're now being joined by a senior lecturer of molecular biology from the University of Lagos, Dr. Joseph Minari. Thank you so much for joining us on Network Africa.
You're welcome.
So what do you think is responsible for the slow pace of COVID-19 vaccination on the African continent?
Thank you very much. I can say that the slow pace of vaccination in Africa could be traceable to several reasons. Number one, we can't deny the fact that we have some economic reasons, some economic instability in this continent. Some of the countries that have been able to make orders ahead of time, some of them are a little bit more buoyant than some countries in Africa. And number two is because of some issues of conspiracy theories, where we have some countries in Africa still being skeptical about the vaccine. And so early moves were not made to make sure that they were able to get the vaccine as quickly as possible. Number three, also I can talk about political will. Most countries they lack the political will to also make arrangement for this vaccine. Then another point I can also raise that have led to this is also a lack of priority for education and health. Most countries in Africa has been having these issues over the time. They are not been able to fund, because if I'm just trying to imagine if African countries also were able to also develop our own vaccine here, it will also made it faster, not waiting cap in hand for us to get some of this vaccine from other countries. WHO needed to be calling up for us, speaking for us, crying out for us that Africa, that we need a vaccine in Africa. So I think it's high time that we in this part of the world as well, we should begin to look inward Africa is the second largest continent, and we should be able to also produce, assuming there's a country that was able to come up with vaccine here, it will be easier and faster for that particular brand of vaccine to quickly circulate here. Even knowing the fact as well that we're also having some variant issues here and there, like what happened in South Africa, where they have to suspend the AstraZeneca, and they are now going for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because of the variants they have. So I think majorly, some of these reasons are actually responsible for the low pace of vaccination in this part of the world.
Yeah, you mentioned a lot of solid points there. I mean, yesterday, Ghana received 600,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine through the COVAX initiative. But really, what impact will this have on curbing the spread of the virus, considering the fact that Ghana has a population of over 30 million people?
Well, it will just go a little bit just to show that at least they are making progress, because if you look at the percentage of what is going to cover vis-a-vis their population is still very much small. Unlike some other countries that have, like the European Union already make orders for about 1.8 billion, which is almost times 2 of what they will have in their continent. So for Ghana, that is having about just 600, for me, it's just a step in the right direction, but we need to do more. During your news, you told us about Guinea, even got just 60. So, well, it will help, but I think we have to do more, because a lot of people are dying. Over 100 deaths recorded in Africa, at least for those that have been reported. So I think more action needs to be put into it, so that eventually we won't experience that the fact that when other continents are done with COVID-19, they will place ban on Africa, that we can't travel to some other countries, because we are still battling to get the vaccines for our people over here, and there will probably also a lot of lives. So we need to do more. The 600 they got in Ghana, 600,000, it's not enough. We still need to try to get more, so that we can actually get out of this pandemic as quickly as possible.
Dr. Minari, you mentioned earlier about tackling misinformation. We've heard a lot of conspiracy theories on the COVID-19 vaccines, with some countries like Tanzania advising their citizens not to take the jab. How can this misinformation be tackled, especially as we await delivery of the vaccines here in Nigeria and several other African countries?
I think one of the ways to tackle this conspiracy theory and misinformation, also spreading through the social media, is when we have a mainstream media like yours coming up with information, getting in contact with experts in this area to explain to the people, especially indigenous, those that are Africans, that we also believe in, and then we, the scientists also in this part of the world, should be able to validate some of these things and then put out the result to tell our people that this thing is safe. We can explain to the barest minimum the mechanism by which some of these vaccine will work, so that our people's mind will be at rest. There are a lot of conspiracy theories that, if you are not well informed, definitely you'll be misinformed, and that is what is actually happening. So we need to push out more information. If possible, even translating to our local dialects, so that even those in the remote areas, they can have a full understanding of what is happening, and that the vaccine is not intended for something negative, as is being rumored or being sent to them through social media. So I think information, the proper information, needs to come up more stronger than the conspiracy theory that we have, and probably is coming from our people here that have tested, and they too know that they are tested and trusted people. It will go a long way to make sure that they change their mind concerning the misinformation they are having coming up from the various conspiracy theories that have been going around.
All right, then, Senior Lecturer of Molecular Biology from the University of Lagos, Dr. Joseph Minari, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on Network Africa.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Still to come on the program. Violence erupts in Niger's capital, Niamey, after the opposition rejects election results. More details in a moment. Please stay with us. Thanks for staying with us on Network Africa. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres is calling for a renewed concerted global effort to ensure the protection of human rights of all people. While giving a progress report, Mr. Guterres says that the call to action was launched in the context of a wholesale assault on human rights around the globe. From glaring infringements to creeping transgressions, the UN boss says the world saw human rights being violated and under attack.
Enduring challenge is to transform the promise of the UN Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights into real-world change on the ground. It is to look at our contemporary challenges with a human rights lens. And this is why my call to action extends beyond the UN family. It is also a call to all member states, to parliamentarians, to the business community, to civil society, and to people everywhere. We shoulder a collective responsibility. Transformative change will take the full commitment and support of us all. Much like COVID-19 vaccines, human rights will not lead to a healthier world if they are only available to the privileged few. We need renewed, concerted global determination to ensure the protection of human rights of all people, everywhere and in all situations. And we must all join forces to deliver. Only by working together can we forge a new social contract that reflects respect and protection for all people and is rooted in universal human rights.
Meanwhile, United Nations Under-Secretary General for Peace Operations, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, says that the Central African Republic is on track to successfully conclude a democratic transfer of power within the constitutional timeline. While briefing the Security Council, Mr. Lacroix says it's essential that democratic gains are preserved by completing the electoral process and advancing a peaceful resolution to the crisis. He notes that the country is now the most dangerous place for humanitarian work, with over 46% of worldwide incidents registered by international NGOs last month.
The Central African Republic is now the most dangerous place for humanitarian work, with over 46% of worldwide incidents registered by international NGOs last month. Despite this very fragile situation, the country is on track to successfully conclude a democratic transfer of power within the constitutional timeline, which is a major achievement. It is now essential that these democratic gains are preserved by completing the electoral process and advancing a peaceful resolution to the crisis. 2 years since its signing, the political agreement remains the only viable framework for peace. The country continues to suffer from violence despite the successful conclusion of the presidential election, albeit in challenging circumstances. In recent weeks, some important progress was achieved against the armed group coalition, the Coalition des Patriotes pour le Changement, CPC, including due to outstanding efforts of MINUSCA, as well as the contribution of bilateral partners. However, the situation remains very volatile. In several towns, including Bossangoa in the west and Bambari in the center, the mission is providing security to thousands of internally displaced persons who had sought protection from the ongoing violence.
Violence has erupted in Niger's capital, Niamey, after the opposition presidential candidate, Mahamadou Usman, rejected the election results that gave his opponent, Mohamed Bazoum, majority of the votes. Mr. Usman's campaign director, just a couple of hours before the Electoral Commission announced the results, said they had been widespread fraud, including the theft and stuffing of ballot boxes and threats against voters. He, however, did not provide any evidence. Mr. Usman also issued a video message on Wednesday calling on protesters to mobilize, saying he does not accept the results in Timia, Agadez and Tauha. Mr. Bazoum, a 61-year-old former interior minister, won 55.75% of the vote in Sunday's election. That's according to the Electoral Commission. He beat Mr. Usman, a former president who was toppled by a coup in 1996. However, the provincial results must still be confirmed by the Constitutional Court. An analysis of satellite imagery shows that fires that appear to have been deliberately set destroyed more than 500 structures this week in and around Ethiopia's Gizet town. This adds credence to reports of continued conflicts in part of the northern region of Tigray. That's according to the DX Open Network, a security research organization based in Britain. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed declared victory over a rebellious regional force, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, at the end of November last year, after its fighters withdrew from the region's main cities and towns. But sporadic fighting continues in some parts of Tigray, according to residents and United Nations assessments. The government has acknowledged isolated incidents of shooting, but claims that most fighting has stopped in Tigray. Well, let's take you to Senegal to meet Fallou Diop, one of the country's most promising jockeys. Experts say his size, featherweight and passion for horses make him an ideal competitor. Having won the country's most prestigious racing prize 2 years ago, Diop is now hoping to compete abroad. Take a look.
19-year-old Fallou Diop is one of Senegal's most promising jockeys. He was just 17 when he won the country's top racing prize. Today he dreams of being a racing champion outside Senegal as well, and trains intensely from early morning on the sandy plains bordering Senegal's Lac Rose. Diop is just a head shorter than his peers. As he preps for drills, he vanishes into the crowd of jockeys cantering at sunrise. When the racing begins, however, his crutch silhouette, effortlessly in phase with his horse, is as evident as the horizon behind them.
It's a passion in my family, starting from my grandfather, who supported horses, then my father. After him, he stopped after the death of Bella, his mare. Then my big brother became a jockey. Then me. I really like epic racing. It's the elders who taught us everything since we were young, and that's how I became passionate about horses.
Diop is planning on training in France from next year, realizing a dream coveted by some of Senegal's foremost equestrians. Horses are an integral part of Senegal's cultural identity. Over the past 50 years, competitive racing has developed into a national pastime. Thanks to his featherweight and his size, Diop is able to handle most horses without tiring them. At the stud farm, Diop prepares a 2-year-old foal racer Betty. She can only be ridden by lightweight jockeys, a benefit for Diop, who weighs around 36 kilograms.
We have a special relationship. Before she was born, I took care of his mother until she gave birth, and she has recognized me ever since.
Back home on a busy Niagara back street, Diop lives with his 12 family members. His older brother is proud of Fallou's success, showing off his prizes to all the visitors. And his father loves telling the story of how his son enrolled in a riding school far from home just so he could ride.
His namesake is in Guadeloupe. I gave him the name of my little brother, and I took him to live over there. When my brother left for Italy, he stayed there with his grandmother. And when he came back to Niagara, he told me he didn't want to return there ever again. He even went to enroll at Mbao alone, so the coach would teach him how to ride a horse.
Diop was 12 years old when he left a tailoring apprenticeship to pursue a career as a jockey. His parents had decided to end his early horse riding ambitions after he broke his arm falling off a horse. But Fallou couldn't stop thinking of horses, and within a few years, his passion brought him right back to the stables.
Definitely one to look forward to. Good luck to him. And that's the program today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Tenyola Shubowale.